According to the American Pet Product Association, a dog owner spends an average of $1,896 per year per dog on food, veterinarian bills, grooming services, boarding, and other items, while cat owners spend $1,227 per cat each year. Now, a recent study done by Florida Southern College for the SPCA Florida shows the importance of the shelter and its ability to turn the wheel in the economic community within Polk County. All the details are coming up on Polk Place. Welcome to Polk Place. I'm your host, Brian Lacey, and joining me in studio, a veteran of Polk Place tapings, Adam Stanfield. He's the executive director of SPCA Florida. How you doing?
I'm well. Yourself?
Yeah, doing great, doing great. And of course, Dr. Chuck Duvall from Florida Southern College. How you doing, Doc?
I am doing well today. Thanks for hosting us.
Not a problem. And I've been informed that the Hokie Nation
That's right.
That's right, we are.
is in the house.
Yeah,
So.
That's just an ancillary benefit of all
I think
this,
I broke it in for him and then let him.
You boys be good, please.
Yeah.
All right.
You know, we're going to start jumping in a minute. Don't play Sandman.
Exactly. I've seen that at a football game.
Yeah, yeah.
Adam, talk to me a little bit about the SPCA. Give me the Reader's Digest version of what you guys do.
Basically, high capacity medical center in Polk County. We do about 45,000 transactions a year through the medical center on 60,000 patient visits. And on the adoption center side, which you know, is one of the reasons why we're here to talk about it, we do about 4,000 adoptions a year. We're looking at about 4,200 this year, which is up from 3,900 last year. So just a great organization, supports Polk County Animal Services immensely by pulling some of the animals from them and, you know, getting them vet checked and spayed neutered and out the door. So full service medical center too.
And here's where the interesting part of this program comes along.
Yep.
Folks really see you as the director for SPCA Florida, but they don't know what your background is, and you and I were talking a couple weeks ago.
Sure.
Talk to me a little bit about your background and how it kicked off this thought and what it's turned into.
Well, kind of an eclectic experience level. I spent 9 years with JCPenney out of college, and ultimately I was operations and personnel manager for them. Back in that day, we as department managers actually ran a business inside a business, so I was responsible for inventory management, planning, development, marketing plans, you know, all that stuff. Left the for-profit world in '96, became a small business development executive director down at the Roanoke Regional Chamber of Commerce, where we actually worked with individuals to put them into business plans, marketing plans, financial plans, to get them ready to go talk to a bank for seed money and things like that. Spent 2 years in Pittsburgh, where I actually became my own client to grow out a retail operation for the Duquesne University. And then we moved to Atlanta, where I ran a free medical clinic, the Hands of Hope Clinic, great little operation. And from there, I made the jump to our supportive hospital, Henry Medical Center, where I was a foundation director. So all of that bundled up, a lot of economic development, business development, human health care, medical orientation. Spring forward, we moved to Tampa, and I answered an ad from Monster, of all places, on December 23rd, 2013 for the executive director role out at SPCA Florida, by which they never mentioned that one needed an animal welfare experience. So they clearly were looking for the business mind, and that was something that I said, I can do this, and sent in a note and had a 5-month-long hiring process where we put everything on the table and agreed to move forward to grow and develop the organization. And from that, had a chance moment at a for-profit provider's office up in Winter Haven, where we had our light bulb moment, and that's what set everything forward.
Because you knew from your background, whether it was widgets, puppies, or kittens, there was going to be an economic impact on a community on what you guys did.
Sure, absolutely. And I give a lot of credit to my CEO back in Atlanta for Henry Medical Center. His name's Charlie Scott. He always used to preach to his management staff about the economic impact of the hospital on our county. So coming from that world, I always remembered that. And again, sitting up in the for-profit provider's office in Winter Haven, a woman was sitting in the same room with me just staring away, and I had my shirt on and got really kind of weird, and finally she said, "I got all these from you." And she had 4 cats sitting there ready to see this for-profit vet. And that was the light bulb moment, and just like, wow, here's 4 of our cats sitting in this for-profit provider's office, ready to go, take part in that $1,000 worth of care on an annual basis that you just stated. And I said, there's the story. So I came back to campus and talked to Crystal, our stats girl, and I said, Crystal, find out how many animals that we adopted come back to us. And that was 25%. So that immediately meant 75% or 3,000 animals go somewhere else. And I started calling around to see who can do this study for me. I was like, look, we got this wild card here in the adoption center. And I landed in the cafe down at Florida Southern College with Dr. Duvall, and it all went from there.
Dr. Duvall, can you tell me about the MBA program within Florida Southern College?
Sure, it's been around over 30 years, but in its present form about 6 years. And when I say present form, what I mean is basically it's a hybrid experience for the most part, meaning that generally our MBAs are professionals that have jobs and families, and they're doing this in conjunction with a whole lot of other things in their life. It's designed as a 16-month program, but can take 24, and we generally enter folks in August, and then they graduate the following December, about 16 months later. But again, it could be a 24, and sometimes even longer, depending upon how fast somebody wants to get through it.
So when you had this meeting with Adam, you knew that you had numbers that had to be crunched, and you needed people that had that experience or were willing to put their heart and soul into this. And you picked 4 individuals, and in all honesty, they did a hell of a job.
They did. Well, to be frank, when he first approached me with this concept or idea, I didn't know how to react to it, because I frankly had never done an economic impact study of this magnitude, or for a nonprofit for that matter. We had done one for an arts focused center, and we discovered at the time that there was software out there specifically for the arts business. So we went back to the literature and what we call academia and looked through all the literature to see what else had been done out there, and found nothing really that we could that could serve as a model about how to go about this. So it took a lot of preparation, several months frankly, of research and evaluating different options as to how we would approach it. And as it turns out, I mean, this has been a year now. We've been, since this first kicked off, and we actually, as you just described, I made it a summer-directed study and was fortunate enough to find 4 really sharp MBAs in our program that were able to tackle the project and be successful.
So when you take on a project like this that's really never been done within your program, talk to me a little bit about some of the challenges that the students and you along faced.
Well, the largest challenge was trying to find something that was credible, software-wise, where that you were going to get solid, credible numbers on the backside, no matter what your input is. So we did quite a bit of research to discover a program called IMPLAN, which was frankly a state-of-the-art program that's been used for profits across the country for some time, and discovered that it had been used effectively in some nonprofit worlds, but nothing like what we had done. So working with those experts there, we determined that it would be the best product by which to do the study. So then we had to, of course, get educated. We had to license the software, which wasn't cheap, by the way, and we got Polk County specific data, which was very expensive, frankly, even with an education quote-unquote discount. And with that, then we had to get our students trained up to be effective modeling the software. Along the way, we were in constant contact with IMPLAN to say, make sure we're doing this right. And then when our results were tabulated, then we had, of course, to get them to, had them review them to make sure that they felt like they were credible. And they felt like, my gosh, you could have taken this a lot further. But frankly, the numbers were so staggering that as a benefit that we felt like this is a real conservative result that we can hang our hat on.
Yeah, that was my next question. At the end of the day, the numbers you came up with, where did they fit in the range?
Well, do you mean as to what our expectations?
Were they conservative? Were they?
They were very conservative, is my point. Yeah, we could have taken this a couple of different steps further. It really would have had a much higher inflated number. But we felt like this was a real fair representation of the effect in this region. A lot of our study was outside of Polk County, but we didn't have specific data. So we interpolated neighboring counties with Polk County data. But what we discovered was when we did the number crunching and gathering was 25% of these animals that leave, they actually go outside of Polk County. So this is not a Polk County experience. This is a regional experience. And when you look at all the adoptions that take place outside, it's pretty powerful. We actually proved on paper that within Polk County, the 179 for-profit veterinarians have about one full-time employee they wouldn't have had otherwise because of this adoption work.
One of the things that I really like about the study is when you do economic impact, it's never really geared for nonprofits, and you guys kind of did some cutting edge things. Talk about where you're going to take this in the future.
Well, that's a up for discussion experience. We're having it daily, but I can tell you that this has made a splash nationally. I was telling Adam earlier today, I've had 14 or 15 phone calls from around the country and numerous emails saying that, how in the world did you pull this? How did you do it? And would you be willing to consult and or do a project like this for us? So I think this is a huge opportunity for our college, and we will see how it develops.
And that was one of the things that going into this and understanding how something like this can explode, for lack of a better word, I figured that it would be a great opportunity for SPCA Florida, because now we have a credible third party that is a well-known institution going in and providing this information. And with Dr. Duvall's findings that nothing like this really had been done before, really put him in a world in SPCA Florida in a world of unknown. And I knew that once the study had come through and taken a look at that first time we saw your number, I mean, Julie Davis, our board president, about jumped out of our seats. We knew that other organizations would be interested in, and specifically, if not the for-profit veterinary community, funding agencies, because this opens up a whole new door for them to evaluate their return on investment for organizations like ours. Traditionally, that measurement is lives saved, numbers of adoptions, things like that. But I've had a conversation with a national pet foundation organization presenting this information, and they immediately wanted the information. They are part of a funding conglomerate, and they immediately requested if they could share it with their conglomerate, because this subject matter question comes up all the time in their world. And again, much like Dr. Duvall said, nobody really knows how to approach it. So, now instead of measuring just lives and adoptions, it's measuring the impact those dollars have on individual communities from an extensive perspective. Really cool.
Yeah. Well, Adam, Dr. Duvall, I want to thank you for coming in and sharing the program with us.
Thank you very much.
It was our pleasure.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Great opportunity.
And for you at home, what we want you to do is kind of sit back, take a look at some of the numbers that were crunched, and take a look at this program.
Okay. Well, I didn't realize it was over a year ago that this was actually starting, but it was presented to us earlier this year, April, May, maybe, to basically, Florida Southern was given that opportunity to collaborate with SPCA of Florida in developing and determining how much of an impact the organization actually has in the regional economy. And so little did we know upon our preliminary research that this study actually is pretty much, I'm comfortable calling it the first of its kind in the animal welfare world, which is really powerful. It's groundbreaking stuff. Being a nonprofit, you're often asked if what's good for the community is or can it also be good for the economy. Well, our results are nothing short of astounding, and we're just extremely proud and happy to share them with you this afternoon. Adam did give a little bit of an introduction. I will say something. Rachel Mostert was our fourth in this. She was unable to be here today, but we did have AJ Nuna and Morgan Rosenkrantz and myself. My name is Adrienne Wright, and the four of us, we kind of, with the guidance of Dr. Duvall and several other consultants for us throughout the process, we came together and brought this case study to what it is today. One thing that we wanted to focus, and some of this might be familiar to some of you, but for those of you who've not seen this image, this is basically breaking down 2015's adoptions. Where did they all go? And this is a really powerful image because you see almost 3,000 of them stay within Polk County, but it goes a lot farther than Polk County. There are actually some that you can't see here because they're actually out of state. And he did mention that 25% of those adoptions do return to the Reva McClurg Medical Center to receive their veterinary care. What's really cool is that 50% actually go to the for-profit inside Polk County. The other 25% goes outside of Polk County, making it their impact actually a little bit more far-reaching. Then we started looking for tools that we got all this data, right? So what do we do with it? How do we draw from that data the actual economic impact for the region? This is where we found Implan. It's very well renowned in the economic world. It is the go-to for doing economic impact studies. What's really cool is that it factors region-specific factors unique to the area that you're looking at. So if you could do by a whole region, Central Florida, for instance, you could do by county, which is what we focused on, or you could break it out even farther down by using zip codes, just to target cities in general. One thing more that it does is it actually breaks it down by direct, indirect, and induced effects, and Morgan's actually going to talk more about that.
So we're putting our numbers in and it's generating direct, indirect, and induced effects. So what are those? So, oops, I'm going backwards. So what are those? We're putting in our revenue data. The direct effects are the veterinary services, plain and simple. The indirect effects are who supports those veterinary services, the wholesalers, building maintenance, employment and accounting services, all those people that are, supporting the veterinary services. And then finally, what are the induced effects? That's all of those employees for all of those direct and indirect industries are then going out into the community and spending their money, and that's affecting the economy with their hospitals and physicians, restaurants, realtors, and also our state and local taxes. Even though, SPCA Florida is a nonprofit, still those people that are affected by them with what they're doing are then paying those state and local taxes. So our study results, the direct effects, those veterinary services, we found 46.9 million is going back out into the economy over that 6-year period of study. It's employing over 475 personnel, and we're compensating those personnel with 18.9 million in wages. That's pretty amazing. So now our indirect effects. The wholesale services, we're showing 2.4 million and 11 positions. Building maintenance services, almost 200,000 and 6.9 positions. Employment and accounting services, we have almost 800,000 and 12.1 positions. And then finally, our induced effects, how is it actually going out and affecting our real estate services? That's 2.4 million over that 6-year period, 20 realtor positions. Restaurants and fast food services, 1.78 million and 30 positions. And then finally, hospitals and physicians, we're showing 1.8 million and 13 positions. Now, these are just the top industries that we're looking at for those direct, indirect, and induced effects. There are other industries out there that are being affected, maybe not on such a large scale. But it's pretty profound. And then again, even more interesting is how those induced and indirect effects come together to affect our state and local taxes through the medical center, the adoption center, and that combined effect between those two over the 6-year period is 2.4 million in state and local taxes. So how did we go about doing our study? We broke it down into scenarios that we then fed into Implan. So our first scenario was just the medical center. So we were looking at the revenues, and that's information we got directly from SPCA Florida for 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, all going directly into our Implan study. And we found out that for our results, the direct, indirect, induced effects are producing a total output of almost 37 million of economic impact just from the medical center. what I thought was interesting, if you look over an employment directly employed by the medical center, it says 247.2. So that's over a 6-year period. We divide that by 6, it ends up being 42.2. And that's pretty close to what the medical center is actually employing there, if you just look at the medical center. When you start adding in all the other programs, the feral cat spaying and neutering, the meal assistance, the adoption center, then you're doubling the employment here, and you get their total of 80 to 90 personnel actually being employed. But just from the medical center, it shows that our results are pretty on par with what's going on here. Our next 2 scenarios dealt just with the adoption center. So we took scenario 2 was Polk County, the adoptions that are staying here in Polk County and then using for-profit vets for their medical services. And then scenario 3 was going out, the adoptions that are going outside of the county and using vets and medical care outside of the county. So we did those 2 scenarios. And like she said, Reba McClurg is usually having about 25% of the adoptees coming back to for their medical service and treatments. So how do we get those numbers? How do we get those projected revenues in order to put it into in-plan? So we came to the SPCA and they gave us those numbers by zip code where those animals are being adopted from 2010 to 2015. We took those numbers by zip code, by cat, by dog, and then multiplied them by a national average of how much it costs per year for a cat and for a dog to receive their medical care. So remember, scenario 2 is all those pets that are staying in Polk County but going to see for-profit vets for medical care. And it shows that direct, indirect, and induced effects all combined together for a total output of almost $26 million over a six-year period. Again, and I'd like to highlight over here the direct effect employment number of 173.2. That's over 6 years. That's how much, because people are coming here to adopt pets, that then those for-profit vets are able to create a position at their office. And with 173 employment over 6 years, that's basically showing you guys are putting 1 personnel into every office out there, because that shows about how many veterinary offices are in Polk County. And our scenario 3 results, again, that's the outside of Polk County, people going out to see for-profit vets outside of our county, shows about 8.5 million economic impact between indirect, direct, and induced effects. And our last scenario is the combined effects of all of those things, of the Reba McClurg Medical Center and all the adoptions that the SPCA does.
This number is what we thought was just so shocking, and we're hoping that it gives you guys something. So essentially, you get $71.4 million generated in the economy over the span of 6 years. Is anybody excited about that? And these were the overall study results. So essentially, we broke it down, and we were able to determine that for every dollar of revenue that flows through the SPCA process, $1.67 is going back out into the regional economy, which is fantastic. They're doing something right. The adoption center by itself generates $5.7 million annually in the regional economy, and the combined efforts of the medical center and the adoption center is nearly $12 million annually. Which just as a show is that the medical center, the Reba McClurg Animal Medical Center, is critical to the process of SPCA, not only to the SPCA itself and its business process, but also to Polk County and the surrounding areas by providing jobs and businesses and government agencies and animal welfare.
Welcome back to Polk Place. I'm your host, Brian Lacey, and joining me in studio for this segment of the show, 3 of the students from Florida Southern College. Want to introduce you to Morgan Rosenkrantz. She's with Florida Southern College. She's a student there. How you doing, Morgan?
Very good.
Also joining us is AJ Nunez. AJ is also a student with Florida Southern. How you doing, AJ?
Good, how are you?
And last but not least, Adrian Wright, the last of our students with Florida Southern. How you doing?
Quite well.
Yeah. So you guys got to do the study that we saw in the last segment. Talk to me a little bit about how the MBA program at Florida Southern prepared you guys to do this study.
Well, Adrian and I are candidates for graduation this December, and so we've gone through most of the core classes, and it's been qualitative and quantitative in the classes that we've taken. So that's helped us a lot in preparing us for both sides of the study, whereas AJ and our other missing member, Rachel, are in the new cohort that will graduate in 2017. And so this is the beginning of their journey, and I think it's worked well having all those different insights and vantage points to develop this study and how we went about it.
Now, Adrian, I got to ask you, Dr. Duvall said 2 of you volunteered, and then the other 2 were candidates. And you were one that volunteered. What's with the volunteering? Don't you know you never, ever volunteer for anything?
Oh gosh, what can I say? When I heard it was for SPCA of Florida, I just kind of immediately felt a little tug on my heart because they've always had a soft spot in my heart. So that's why I immediately volunteered for this opportunity to work with them and work with animals. It's an amazing organization, and I just wanted to be involved. So.
Now, AJ, when you got involved with the program, how did you come on board, and what did SPCA mean to you?
The SPCA, I've had friends that have had pets. I never actually had pets except for goldfish when I was growing up. But
they're so much easier.
Right. But in terms of the SPCA, my other team members had a passion for it, so I decided, I've known them from the cohort as well, and I respect their work. And if they were willing to put in the time to do this economic impact study, I was also willing to join the journey with them and do it as well. So that's my primary motivation. When Dr. Duvall called my name, I decided I wanted to throw my hat into the ring and also do a very good job with the economic impact study along with my 2 fellow members here.
Now, when you guys got to the end of the program and you came up with the final numbers that you did, were you guys surprised about it? If you were, why? I mean, talk to me a little bit about the end result, because we just saw the end numbers of the presentation that you guys did, and I, as we shot that, I was amazed at the amount of money that goes back into the local economy just from this one great cause.
Exactly. I think that we all kind of going into it hypothesized that SPCA was bringing a lot to the community, but we had no idea how far that was reaching until we got to the end, and we were definitely amazed.
Now, AJ, when you guys went about the numbers and were doing the crunching of the numbers, there was a program that you used. And is that a standard? What was the program, and is that standard what you use?
The program is called IMPLAN. That's short for Impact for Analysis. And that's a economic input-output model. And our group, what we pretty much did was we figured out the details of what to input into the model. And Morgan can kind of expound on this a little bit more. And we decided whatever the output is, we have to create the context for that output. And that's basically our objective, and that was the objective in the latter part of our economic impact study.
So when you come up with these numbers, at the end of it, talk to me a little bit how you make the presentation like what you guys did. So you've got the numbers that you work in, you run through the program, you've got final numbers, and then you go, okay, here's exactly what you're doing within this community. Adrian, how's that work out?
Okay, so we take some data that we were given from SPCA Florida. In this case, it was their revenue for the span of 6 years. We integrate that into the software tool, and what it does is it pulls data that's geared towards Polk County itself. Like, that's the important thing to know about the software tool, is that it's region-specific data. And so when you put in the revenue, you put in the amount of employees that are inside Polk County, because that was our area that we were focusing on, it automatically populates the impact that it has in the economy, the top 10 industries that are affected by this, by the SPCA of Florida. Morgan can even tell you more about it than I can, because she put in most of this data for us.
Well, it definitely shows It tells you how the SPCA affects not employment, labor, and the overall impact that the county has. And it shows it not just in veterinary industry, but also in anything that would affect it: wholesalers, real estate agents, restaurants, hospitals, physicians, all those kinds of things that are affected by the people that are then going out into the economy and spending their money based on the revenue that's generated just from the SPCA, from their medical center, and from their adoption center.
All that by adopting one single cat or one single dog.
Right, and our study showed that $1 generated from the SPCA is then going into the community and generating $1.67 in our community.
Now, Adrian and Morgan, you guys are kind of at the end of this ride. What's the future hold for both of you?
Well, Adrian and I have talked about expanding on this economic impact study for nonprofits. We both were very amazed and impressed with what came out of this study and how we can help the community. So that's something that we're looking forward to maybe pursuing in the future.
Yep.
And Adrian, talk about that. When people think nonprofits, there's a stigma that goes
There
with
is a stigma. People think it's a charity.
And they don't realize that the difference that they do make in the community.
They do. I mean, whether they're for-profit or nonprofit, there is obviously an impact in an economy. I think nonprofit gets that stigma based off people thinking that they're just a charity. People are giving donations to this and they're not seeing where their money goes. But the nice thing is that when you do these impact studies, you can see where this money is going. And it's a wonderful tool for nonprofits, especially when they're looking for donors of any sort. They can have this quantifiable data that they can show them and say, look, this is where we affect it. There's even taxes that are induced by the nonprofit organization based off of those other industries that are affected. So.
AJ, what's the future hold for you?
For me, I'm planning to go into financial analysis, so that's kind of my future path.
So this will be the first of a couple you do before you graduate.
I'd love to do an economic impact study again. This is a great preview of what I would like to do more going forward. So the SPCA offered me an opportunity as well as our team, and we're really grateful for it.
Well, guys, I got to congratulate you. Obviously, it's Morgan, Adrian, and AJ are here, and Rachel's not here. But we've been working with SPCA Florida for some time now, and a lot of times it's that tangible puppy or kitten that you could feel in the studio, and you feel good about doing and helping these guys out. And now this is a tangible product that you guys have created for them, and they can market to the community, and you should all be commended for your service. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure.
The economic impact of the pet industry has grown dramatically over the last decade with the increase in pet ownership. At the national level, total pet industry expenditures rose from $17 billion in 1994 to $60.28 billion in 2015, according to the American Pet Products Association. SPCA Florida is contributing to the economic impact of Polk County roughly $71 million from 2010 through 2015, or $12 million a year. Now, if you need more information on the study that outlines the SPCA Florida economic impact within the community, check them out on the web at www.spcaflorida.org.